We can do this together if we all stand together. We can do this together if we all stand together. We can do this together if we all stand together.
Yes, it is. Oh, yes.
So, give it a couple minutes, wait for other people to join. Let's see if even a few people from our own team join. We're going to talk about, as you guys all know, the state of Washington. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the rule. You know, let's call it HB 1050. It's a little bit technical, but it'll be known as something fancier soon enough. But for now, it's House Bill 1050, and it'll be very, very interesting to see how this comes to market. But we have some very good early indications of what is going to happen. And that's what we're going to go over today.
Cool beans. Yeah, I'll have to jump a few minutes before the top of the hour, so just to let you know.
Okay, well, if there's anything we missed, just follow up in an email, and I'll make sure we share it.
Definitely will. Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, in respect of everybody here's time, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're actually going to talk about two things happening in the state of Washington today. So we'll get to Rule 1050 at the end, but in the meantime, for those of you who are joining, I don't know where Steve Ehrlich is, but let's see if he showed up. No?
I've been here for 10 minutes.
Well, Steve, it's not like you to be silent, so welcome. Elizabeth is the one who put all this together. She does all the hard work here. And but together as a team, you know, we've reviewed this rule several times. And we've had a long time to be able to look it over. It hasn't changed much as the legislature had been voting on it in Washington over the last 8 months, really. But we do have really good insights, and they did a nice job of documenting this bill. But first, let's talk about last year was kind of a crazy year in the state of Washington. I don't know if any of you are on the Washington State Alerts, but if you were, you would see frequent emergency actions that were deployed last year related to the HFC phase down. While that HFC phase down was going through its evolution, and it's known as even a fancier name, Chapter 173-443, we saw several actions that were referred to as emergency actions because of COVID. They couldn't meet to vote. Ultimately, they were able to meet. And basically, this is what it says. It's pretty straightforward. It is very specific to HFCs. And this is essentially Washington State's SNAP 20 and 21 rule. Does anyone have any questions about that? SNAP 20 and 21, we talked about it a lot. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Okay. If you have any questions about what refrigerants are allowable or not allowable, or how they're acceptable or not acceptable under SNAP 20 or 21, happy to answer those questions as well. But that's what Rule 173-443 is referring to. All right. So the phase out is directly along the lines of where SNAP 20 and 21 were. So refrigerated food processing equipment, 2021, we're already there. That's why they were doing the emergency actions, because they wanted to make sure that that rule went into place for the beginning of the calendar year, which they had been talking about for over a year. So those things are already in place today. And again, happy to answer any questions, or any one of us on this call on the Trakref team can address it, but if you feel more comfortable, you can drop something into the chat box. I'll keep an eye on that. Washington State is the lead state in the what we refer to as the Frontline 9.
Ted,
What's that?
I have a question.
What do you got?
This is Danny Hallel.
Hi, Danny.
My question is, what prompted that rule that you just removed or that you just discussed?
Well, I mean, a number of things. The state of Washington, like the other 8 states that we referenced here as well, where are they? All of these states felt like the continuity related to SNAP 20 and 21, which had been adopted in 2015 and 16, were too important for the state to abandon. So they went ahead and made their own rule related to that.
Okay.
All right, because there's more to this. It's a good question because we're going to dig into it a little bit deeper. But all of these other states also have the same type of action in place in some form or another. All right, so these are the prohibition dates related to SNAP 20 and 21 and also related to that 173-443 rule. And again, we'll share these slides out with everybody at the end so that you're all familiar. You don't have to worry if you didn't capture it.
Hey, Ted, are those dates specific for Washington?
They are, and they aren't. You know, they're specific because Washington called them out in the rule in 173, chapter 173. But they're also part of SNAP 20 and 21.
I know California is wavering on a couple pieces of that, but wanted to make sure.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think California will waver on the dates for these, like SNAP 20 and 21 issues, Paul. I think where they're going to waver is on their ability to set the bar even lower on those responsibilities.
Right, that's right.
All right, so what's required? Manufacturers have reporting requirements. For anybody who's familiar, Paul, your team probably is deeply aware of this. The state wants manufacturers to report into a database the type of equipment, model type, and the refrigerant types that are allowed in it. And so that's already begun. That already started this year. If you don't report and you're still trying to sell equipment, you could be fined. So this is very heavily weighted towards equipment manufacturers for what happened last year in 173-443. All right, the big one. This is really one of the most amazing things that we're going to wrestle with. And I think it's a great bill. Steve told me not to be too enthusiastic. But this is referred to, this is HB 1050. And HB 1050 was just signed into law in the last month. So it's brand new. But the bill itself, HB 1050, is very specific about what the legislature has given the state for authority to handle. We came up with a few very important things, but the key ones here are set GWP limits for allowable refrigerants, and some of those numbers are aggressive. The state actually calls them out. If you're an owner of an ice rink, your limit will be 750. And the window of time to put that in place, you still have a few years. But broadly, what this said is we're going to put together a refrigerant management program. And the goals were to limit or reduce emissions and give the state control over HFC refrigerants. Not just control over the use of the refrigerants, but the maintenance of systems that contain the refrigerants. There's 27 pages to this bill. We don't have a lot of slides today because I'm hoping we're going to have a conversation. But if we don't, I've made a list. But these are the key takeaways. There is an annual registration and fee program, and it's including any AC or refrigeration unit 50 pounds and over. So a little bit different than California, not a lot different, because in the state of California, when they were writing this back in 2005, 6, 7, what they were talking, they actually included AC in their reporting program. They just didn't enforce it yet. So the state technically gave the Air Resource Board authority over air conditioning, but it was decided at the time.
How's about we talk about those HFCs? Just read the facts if you don't believe me. Watch your leakage, disposal, and recycle, it's key.